Alan, there's a portion of the fans that blame this on the coaching. Barry Trotz leads them to the Stanley Cup. It's the rookie season here for Coach Reardon. How would you assess the job he did as a rookie?
I thought he did a great job as a rookie because when you look at, what you have to do, you basically, after your coach wins the Stanley Cup and he's got the best winning percentage, therefore he's the best coach the franchise has ever had, in my opinion. When you've got to replace that, there's a lot of pressure, and then you're coming off the short off season. You're getting acclimated with the new. But I think there's going to be a lot there learned in the playoffs, and even with the team makeup, there was a lot of lessons learned. Is that basically the Capitals just sit, and which I have no problem with, and they just filled in the spots for the players that were there before. And when you look what Carolina did, or the New York Islanders, all the other teams in the division, we'll say especially the Columbus Blue Jackets, they significantly upgraded in areas. And this is the first year the Caps just plugged a couple of holes, and they didn't make the team better. So, and it's not a shot at anyone because you think that would have been good enough, but at the same time, the systems didn't change that much. Everyone changed and experimented with their roster, their tactics in game to get better and win. So I think a lot of lessons were learned by the general manager and the coaching staff.
On to the offseason, and I haven't looked at the list of their free agents. I think Conley's an unrestricted free agent. I think
he is, so is Hagelin.
Maybe Berkey is. I don't know. What kind of decisions do they have?
Well, I think no matter what they do with the roster, so the changes, they're going to have to make sure that you get Oshie back in, you get Kempney back in next year, but they're going to have to make changes to make the team better. And, it'll be who's better than this guy? Is this guy worth it? I look at Brett Connolly. The amount of money he could probably get out there right now is a lot more, and he's probably take a lot more term than they were willing to give him. I look at Andre Burakovsky's a restricted free agent, so basically the Caps are the only team can offer him a contract. After what he went through, and no one made it a secret that he was on the trading block, he could be gone. I love the way he played down the stretch. Devontae Smith-Pelly, I'd be surprised if he's back after the season he had, and I guess some of the issues that they had of why he wasn't playing at the start of the year. But he could be back if he is back, to be on a very unique contract, and it could go back to a two-way contract. It could be back to one with an incentive to be in shape. And then defense, is it time to say goodbye to Brooks Orpik and Jonas Siegenthaler played so well at those last few games that he played, and that's just a small sample, but you'd think that he's going to garner the respect that he's deserved, that he would be playing opening night if he has a good training camp and shows up in shape. I think the team has to change their physical makeup because they couldn't win the Cup. They were tired at times this season. But at the same time, when they were winning, it looked a little too easy, and I like they weren't as ugly. The games weren't as physical. They were almost too polite, with the exception of Wilson and Ovi all season long. So I think they need to add some more grit and some more bite, and that means that some of the players that are on the roster need to be replaced by players that play a more physical brand, a hungrier brand of hockey on a nightly basis.
And Alan, McClellan really has a fine line to walk because we touched on some of the free agents, unrestricted and restricted, that are coming up this season. Backstrom is a UFA after next season, and Ovi is a UFA after 2 seasons. So he has to be able to craft that roster. So if they're going to sign those guys going forward and have them retire as Capitals, you're going to have to be able to have that sort of flexibility salary cap-wise with your moves going forward this summer and beyond.
That no matter what, there's going to be more money, and the salary cap always goes up. The Canadian dollar predicates how fast it goes up as well. They have, I don't want to even get into politics, but, if gas prices are down in Canada, it means the dollar's down. It means that they're not making the same type of revenues up there with advertising and ticket sales and ticket prices. Put that aside, there'll always be money. So what you do with Backstrom and Holtby, you just play it out next season. I wouldn't get caught up in that right now. You let those contracts. I would think that Backstrom would be here no matter what, because he's been one of the faces of the team for a lot longer. And then Braden Holtby, what is he going to want? If he's in his 30s, you can't give out 8-year contracts. And I don't think you give out another 8-year contract to Ovi, as much as I love him, as much as Backstrom. I think you'd have to go shorter term on those contracts, bump it up maybe a little bit more. But you just got to be careful there, because I think with older players, the guys that we fall in love with, I've said this before, I don't think when Ovi's done playing, it's not going to be his heart. It's going to be his brain sending a message to his body to move, and that body's not going to move. He's put so many hard miles on it on the ice, and it's just going to be hard when it's time to, for him to hang it up. I think his legs will just be gone, and he won't be able to go anymore. It'll be just physically too hard for him to get up and go, and hopefully that's not for about 4 or 5 more years, maybe even longer. But you just got to be careful signing those contracts that they're not too long and they don't cripple you, because we see teams around the league that have these massive contracts, and I don't think the Caps want to be a team that's telling a guy to be sick the last 3 years of his contract, or you've got a bad back, or then all of a sudden you're 20, 25 million over the cap league in air quotes. But it's just, you just got to be careful with signing those contracts.
Do you think they do anything major, or is everything pretty minor in the offseason?
No, you know what? I would not be surprised if they pull something major off, just for the fact that, they do have to, there has to be an element on this team. When we're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs every night, the games are gritty. They're crash and bang. Carolina's, like, what they do, step keep up with what Carolina's doing right now. They're so fast. They're in your face. But I look at everyone right now. The Dallas St. Louis game last night, their bodies flying all over the place. You have to have that on your team. And I think so. You have to have a different chemical composition on this team in the future, because you want to get back to playing that way, because that's basically essentially how they won the Stanley Cup, was being a grittier team. So they have to have everyone on board for that. So I think you need some more vinegar in the lineup, and the other part of it as well.
But the counter to that is when I brought up the coaching question, because sometimes people bring that up to us, and look, I don't know, I don't know the impact of Coach Todd Reirden versus Barry Trotz. But the way I look at it is, last year when they won the Stanley Cup, they had very scary moments. They wanted, Game 7. They were trailing series 2-0. It was that close, and they were able to win it. This year they're in a Game 7. If they score the goal instead of give up the goal, then they advance, and we'd still be talking about the team being successful. So it was, again, that close.
Well, you know what? But at the same time, in this series, they couldn't get ahead, and it just wasn't. I just look back at the start of the season, and I don't know how many times I said on the air, I didn't like watching the games. I love watching hockey, but the games were soft to me. They were winning methodically, easy. Kind of like how Tampa was winning. They were easy wins. They just zip the puck around. You don't have to hit. You don't have to do things like that. I don't think you can just play the game that way. You have to have friction in the way you play the game. So I saw one of the teams that was bumped out yesterday announced all their coaching staff will be back, and everyone was shocked and surprised. It also has to do with the amount of money being paid to coaches of guys that you want coaches to coach your team. You don't want to have 2 sets of coaches. $8 million of coaches not on the roster, and and $8 million on the bench. So you have to be careful with that. So they do need to make upgrades. I don't think they would have won the Stanley Cup had they won the series, just because they weren't playing that style all year. I think you can just turn the switch on, and down the stretch, they were winning games, but at the same time, they weren't bulldozing teams. They weren't knocking them over. And that year before, there was a great blend of all of that, where they were, skating hard and bashing teams at the same time. So I just think that, some of that has to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if there are touches to the coaching staff and things like that. Was there enough? The special teams weren't where they wanted them all season long. Maybe a different mind. Maybe you add one more guy, then subtract someone. So there have to be changes, because the status quo to take it. That's going to Backstrom and John Carlson, as long as they're all, like, Carlson's next birthday is 30, Ovi's 34 during training camp back. He's going to be 32. You have to make sure you take advantage of these guys while they're still contributing, and they're still, offensive forces and able to move the puck around and play the game hard.